Can you hear the silence? It isn't empty, it's primed for a showdown. Imagine overhead lights so bright they expose every flaw, and rows of polished benches that seem to hold their breath. In strides, a black woman in a no-frills navy coat, no flashy entrance music, just the resolute click of her shoes on the marble floor. She sits beside her brother, who's already in handcuffs. The courtroom tenses. What use is traditional decorum when fear has room to breathe? The security guard demands her credentials. She meets his challenge with a single, crisp document that shakes him to his core. Judge Griggs barely glances up until he does and delivers the line that cuts deeper than any gavel. "People like you don't belong here." That insult hangs in the air, sharp as broken glass. Now imagine how it echoes in the hollow chambers of justice. This isn't a television drama. This is real power in action. She's not here to argue points, she's here to end the game. A former FBI agent armed with the weapon of silence, she moves with intention. No outbursts, no theatrics, only the utter authority of one who knows every loophole in the system. Want to watch her dismantle entrenched bias step by methodical step? Hit like and subscribe, then ring that bell so you're first in line when we reveal each shocking twist, from stunning courtroom confrontations to high-voltage federal interventions. Trust us, you won't want to miss a single second of this unflinching crusade for real justice. The courtroom doors groan open, the echo of wood on hinge slicing through the hush. Judge Voss, robe pristine, gavel resting like a crown, casts a withering glance at Simone Jenkins, a black woman in a simple navy coat. No heels click on marble, no entourage precedes her. She steps forward, calm as steel. Then he sneers, "People like you don't belong here." In that instant, every breath in the room catches. No one suspects she once served as an FBI agent. No one knows the sealed arrest warrant she holds. Simone didn't come to play by their rules, she came to shatter them. Her hands slip into her coat pocket and produce a single folder. She slides it across to the bailiff. His face blanches. He stammers for credentials, but the law is on her side. Her brother Andre sits at the defense table, his hands cuffed, his gaze heavy with the weight of injustice. The air feels like ice, not from the vents overhead but from the chill of bias. Every camera lens, every spectator's eye, locks onto her. For a moment, time stretches. The only sound is the faint rasp of her coat brushing the floor, an unspoken challenge. Can you feel it? That moment when one woman's quiet strength cracks the veneer of power? This is just the opening move. She won't shout. She won't plead. She'll dismantle this charade with unwavering resolve. If you're already on the edge of your seat, smash that like button now. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single second of this high-stakes showdown. In the next videos, you'll see buried truths explode into view, courtroom secrets ripped wide open, and justice unleashed in ways no one saw coming. Stay tuned because this battle for the truth begins in silence, but it's about to make the loudest noise you've ever heard. The bailiff approached the bench with measured steps, dossier in hand, and leaned in to whisper something under his breath to Judge Voss. The judge's stern expression shifted, subtle eyes narrowing, lips curling into a contemptuous smirk, before he finally regarded Simone with icy disdain. "We allow spectators," he murmured, voice low and hard as steel, "not participants." A heavy silence swept the gallery, pressing down on every chest like a physical force. Simone Jenkins remained perfectly still, unflinching, as if the judge's words were nothing more than background noise. She met his gaze evenly, her tone soft but unwavering. "Your Honor, is there a problem with my paperwork?" That single question sliced through the hush like a blade. The entire courtroom froze. In its tracks, defense attorneys paused mid-note, jurors leaned forward in their seats, and court staff held their breaths. Even the mechanical hum of the air conditioner seemed to falter. The tension coiled tighter, ready to spring. In the corner, a sharply dressed man in a black Sweater secret alice sat scribbling furiously in a small notepad. His brow creased as he studied the scene. The judge's clipped rebuke, the bailiff's unsettled glance, and Simone's composed defiance. He recognized the spark in her eyes, the calm force that had once propelled her through the ranks of the FBI. He tapped his pen thoughtfully, knowing that this quiet confrontation was only Act 1 of a larger strategy. Judge Voss tapped his gavel irritably, the sound echoing like a derisive laugh. "The rules are clear," he said, leaning back against the bench. "If you wish to represent the accused, you must be licensed counsel." His eyes flicked downward to her folder, then back up with a sneer. Simone unfolded the document with deliberate grace, revealing her credentials and the sealed arrest warrant she held. The bailiff's jaw dropped, and even Voss's smirk faltered for a moment. "This appears in order," the judge conceded, though his tone held all the reluctance of a man forced to swallow pride. A murmur rippled through the spectators, a low tide of surprise and curiosity. Could this unassuming woman actually just outmaneuver a seasoned judge? Andre exhaled softly at her side, relief and awe mingling in his expression. Simone simply nodded once, acknowledging the small victory. But this was merely the prelude. The courtroom's cold veneer had cracked, and behind it, a storm was gathering. Simone's calm had unsettled the balance of power, revealing the fragility of authority built on intimidation. The man in the black suit leaned forward, ready to record the next move in this silent chess match where every step, every whisper, and every pause carried the weight of justice itself. Judge Voss allowed himself a thin, patronizing smile, the kind that spreads like a shadow across a room. He leaned forward, voice low and menacing. "You understand. Of course, this is a serious felony. Your brother stands to face decades behind bars." His gavel tapped once, twice each knock a gauntlet thrown at Simone's feet. The gallery held its breath. Even the bailiff paused mid-step, pen hovering above paper. This was the moment the judge believed he would crush her. He had orchestrated this courtroom like a stage, expecting fear, expecting tears. Instead, Simone Jenkins met his gaze with serene clarity. Her voice sounded almost gentle as she replied, "Your Honor, I know the law inside and out. I will defend my brother." A murmur rippled through the courtroom, a faint breath of disbelief. How could anyone be so calm under such threat? Voss's smile twisted into a sneer. "Let's hope this little theater does not waste our time," he growled, rapping the gavel down with exaggerated force. The percussive echo bounced off the wood panels, demanding obedience. At that moment, Andre, shackled at the defendant's table, leaned close and whispered, "You don't have to do this." His words were a tremor of fear. Laced with brotherly love, he wanted to shield her from the coming storm. Simone turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. In that brief exchange, her entire past years in the FBI, nights chasing corruption, scars of betrayal flickered behind her steady expression. Softly, she whispered back, "I have to." A cold wave swept over the courtroom seats as spectators realized this wasn't a mere procedural skirmish. This was a battle for justice itself. The charged silence snapped taut, as if the air itself feared to intrude. The clerk's quill halted mid-ink, and the court reporter's fingers froze above the keys. Judge Voss narrowed his eyes, sensing the shift. He slammed his gavel one last time, hoping to restore order. "Proceed with the prosecution," he barked. But the words rang hollow now. Simone straightened, her navy coat falling in sharp lines around her. She rose from her chair, each movement deliberate. Her calm defiance was more powerful than any outburst. It exposed his cruelty and illuminated her resolve. As she stepped forward to address the court, the weight of her dignity and the vulnerability of the man in the robe converged into a single, electric moment. The entire room seemed to lean in, drawn by the raw intensity of her courage. In that suspended heartbeat, every witness, every juror, every onlooker felt it. The birth of a new kind of power, one that spoke not through threats or thunderous speeches, but through unwavering conviction. The prosecutor rose with measured composure, each step echoing on the courtroom's polished floor, like the drumbeat of an imminent verdict. He paused before the bench, cleared his throat, and then delivered his accusations with the casual authority of a man accustomed to bending facts to his will. "Your Honor," he began, voice smooth yet loaded, "the defendant has known associations with the Ravenswood crime syndicate. While no formal record ties him to convictions, the pattern is undeniable and it demands our concern." A ripple of unease spread through the spectators. No names were named, no documents displayed, only insinuations drifting through the stifling air, like smoke from an unseen fire. The prosecutor folded his hands behind his back, letting the weight of his words hang. In his view, suggestion and suspicion alone were enough to condemn. Simone remained seated until the prosecutor returned to his chair. Then, in one deliberate motion, she rose and let the silence swell before speaking. "Your Honor," she said, voice clear and steady, "we formally request access to every piece of evidence the prosecution claims to possess. The complete forensic report, the chain of custody documents, the fingerprint analyses, ballistic test, results, everything that substantiates these serious allegations." She slid her request across the desk, the paper's crisp edges cutting through the courtroom's haze of doubt. The judge glanced at her, exhaling like a man disturbed by a stray breeze. He shuffled the prosecution's file with a curt flick of the wrist. "We're not here to chase ghosts," he grumbled, the words coated with disdain. A collective intake of breath filled the room. Defense counsel paused mid-note. Jurors straightened in their seats, and the bailiff's hand hovered near his belt, as if uncertain whether to intervene. The judge tapped his gavel once, twice, in an effort to reclaim control. "Speculation and rumor are not evidence," he pronounced, though his tone betrayed his irritation more than any legal principle. "Proceed with the prosecution." But the prosecution had already sat down, his confident posture faltering beneath the glare of Simone's unwavering gaze. She returned to her seat, folding her hands in her lap, eyes still locked on the judge. In that moment, the theater of power in the courtroom cracked just enough for truth to seep through. No longer an abstract concept, justice had taken shape in the form of her question, demanding proof, demanding accountability, demanding that shadows give way to substance. The judge may have scoffed, but the echo of her request lingered, an unspoken reminder that authority without evidence is a hollow echo, and that even a single voice, raised calmly and precisely, can shift the entire balance of power. Simone's calm resolve stiffened into steel. She leaned forward, voice crisp. "Your Honor, the vehicle in question was not registered to my brother, and the weapon produced bears no fingerprints linking him to it. That is clearly stated in the arrest report." Judge Voss paused, mid-gesture, gavel hovering inches above the block. He fixed her with a glare sharper than broken glass. "It appears, Miss Jenkins, that you're merely dressing up street gossip in courtroom vernacular," he sneered, his words slicing through the tension like a razor. A ripple of reaction coursed through the gallery. Some jurors stifled smirks. A handful of onlookers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The gavel finally came down with a hollow thud, as if trying to force order back into chaos. Andre's shoulders tensed beside her. He looked up, eyes wide, realizing this moment was far from a simple sibling's plea. His sister was there to sever the lies at their root. Every fiber of Simone's being vibrated with the weight of her truth, and he drew strength from her unwavering stare. The bailiff's pen halted mid-ink. The clerk's fingers stilled above the keys. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then, in a voice that carried over the stunned silence, Simone pressed on, "This isn't gossip. These are official records. You can verify them for yourself." She slid a copy of the arrest report across the desk, its edges crisp against the polished wood. Judge Voss's lip curled in disdain as he picked up the folder and leafed through it with exaggerated slowness. The courtroom's charged atmosphere crackled, like electricity-every eye trained on his reaction, every mind racing to anticipate his next move. "You still parade these things as proof?" Voss spat, slamming the folder shut. "Proof requires more than documents shuffled on paper." Simone held her ground, jaw set. "Proof requires the absence of doubt. There are no prints, no title, no admission. That is reasonable doubt." A murmur of approval rose faintly from the defense table. The prosecutor shifted uneasily, as the foundation of his case trembled under her words. Voss's face flushed crimson. He rose from his bench, summons in hand, voice booming. "Enough, we will proceed." But his outburst lacked conviction. The veneer of his authority had cracked, revealing the insecurity beneath. Simone sank back into her chair, the cool precision of her argument hanging in the air. In that moment, the balance of power tilted irrevocably. The judge no longer stood above the fray, he was entrenched within it, forced to reckon with the undeniable force of a sister's love and the unassailable clarity of truth. Simone leaned back in her chair, and let her eyes drift over the courtroom like a hawk taking in every movement. To her left, the clerk's fingers tapped a relentless staccato across the keyboard each keystroke, a reminder that this chamber existed to record not compassion, but procedure. Ahead of her, the bailiff shuffled papers with careful efficiency, the pages whispering secrets no one dared speak aloud. On the bench above, Judge Voss sat propped against his gavel, tossing out barbs in between demands for order. His smirk flickered whenever he caught her gaze, as if daring her to crack first. Every time he rapped the gavel, the hollow thud reverberated through the rows of seats, echoing in her chest like a challenge. He still ruled this place with mockery and menace, but she refused to let him own her spirit. The prosecution team rustled their file folders, sliding documents toward one another in hushed tones. They thought their silent collaboration would intimidate her, that the weight of numbers, witnesses, and innuendo would finally force her to bow. Yet Simone remained immaculate in her composure, spine straight, shoulders steady, eyes fixed forward as if watching scenes play out in slow motion. No shout, no angry rebuke escaped her lips. Instead, she radiated a quiet intensity that felt almost physical gravity pulling at the atmosphere, until every other voice seemed to fade away. Her silence filled the courtroom like a tidal wave, pressing witnesses, jurors, even the judge into a hollow stillness. She did not flinch when someone snickered at the back, nor when a lawyer rolled his eyes. In that oppressive hush, her unspoken message hit harder than any outburst could have. She would not be cowed. She was not here to play by their rules. She was here to rewrite them. Each breath she took was an unvoiced vow to her brother, that she would carry this fight through every technicality, every sneer, and every raised eyebrow. When Voss barked for the next witness, his voice rattled in the silence more desperate than commanding. Simone simply inclined her head and studied the door, as though she already knew exactly who would step through next, and exactly how she would confront them. In that charged moment, her silence was no longer a gap in the record. It was a masterstroke of defiance. It said far more than words ever could, and every person in that room, clerk, bailiff, juror, and judge, felt its weight settle over them like an unseen verdict. This woman would not be silenced, and her quiet strength would become the fiercest weapon in the entire courtroom. The court interpreter's fingers tapped out each syllable with a precise click, 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 the sound cutting through the oppressive hush like a metronome of tension. Every word of the prosecution's argument murmured threats, insinuations, half-truths was being laid bare in real time, recorded for posterity. In that room, language held power, but only when someone dared to command it. Simone waited patiently for the prosecutor to finish. The gallery leaned forward in collective silence, as if even breathing might upset the fragile balance. Then she rose, the simple movement resonating like a starting gun. "Your Honor," she began, voice calm yet insistent, "we again request immediate access to all forensic analyses, chain of custody logs, fingerprint reports, and ballistic testing results. Without those documents, the state's case rests on mere speculation." A ripple of unease passed through the courtroom. Judge Voss's eyes flashed with annoyance. He tapped his gavel twice, the deep knocks echoing like a warning. "As long as you remain standing there, this trial will not proceed," he growled, voice low and dangerous, as though her presence alone threatened the very concept of justice. Simone's eyes never wavered. She met his gaze squarely, letting the silence stretch, filling the room with unspoken resolve. No trembling lip, no quaver in her tone, only the confident stillness of someone who knows both the law and her own unassailable rights. Then, almost imperceptibly, she shifted the lapel of her navy coat. A glint of metal caught the edge of an FBI badge tucked neatly inside her pocket, a silent testament to her former life and her unspoken authority. In that single moment, the courtroom stilled. Witnesses paused mid-note, lawyers halted their glances at each other, and the judge's chest rose and fell with a shallow tension. The badge was more than a piece of metal. It was a promise that no hidden dossier could stay buried, no crooked deal would escape scrutiny, and no injustice would stand unchallenged. It spoke without words, louder than any shouted objection. Judge Voss's lips curled into a tight line, as though he wished he could burn the sight from his memory. The gavel in his hand trembled slightly, rare crack in his otherwise unshakable facade. Simone leaned back into her chair, her posture unwavering. She had placed her card stand, her credentials squarely on the table, transforming the court's atmosphere from one of condescension to one of awe and apprehension. In that charged silence, the real trial began. The trial of integrity versus intimidation, truth versus pretense. And as the interpreter's clicks resumed, recording every heartbeat of this moment, everyone understood that the true power in the courtroom no longer resided with robes or gavels, but with the woman who dared to stand in absolute, unspoken command. The night before the trial, Simone Jenkins sat alone in her cramped apartment just 2 blocks from the courthouse. A single desk lamp cast an amber pool of light over a heap of yellowed files spread before her decade-old records of Operation Latchkey, her once proud FBI investigation into corruption within the Bureau itself. As she flipped through blurred pages, each document recalled a betrayal that still cut deeper than any bullet wound. She traced the faint scar above her wrist, a souvenir from the night her field team vanished on a rogue sting operation. Officially, they had been called off due to insufficient evidence, but she knew the truth. Someone high up had buried the case, redirecting promotions while her dossier was quietly erased. Colleagues she had mentored became emissaries of silence, refusing to acknowledge the data she risked her life to gather. She was reassigned to a desk job, stripped of clearance, and left to watch her once shining career flicker out. In the stillness of that apartment, the same scar throbbed, reminding her of every moment she had swallowed her anger, hoping justice would find its own path. It never did. Instead, the rot spread unchecked. The very institution meant to safeguard truth had turned its back on her. Then came the call about her brother Andre, a routine traffic stop that exploded into felony charges on nothing more than flimsy insinuations. She felt the old fire ignite in her chest. This was no longer about personal vindication. It was about shattering the system that had forsaken both her and countless others. She carefully organized the files she had once authored, financial ledgers showing kickbacks, surveillance logs without chain of custody breaks, witness statements suppressed by layers of red tape. Each paper she laid out was a weapon in its own right. She knew how to wield them, how to force a corrupt judge to swallow his arrogance, how to make accusations that could not be ignored. This trial wasn't an act of vengeance. It was her chance to reclaim justice, to prove that truth does not die in silence. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes against the memory of empty conference rooms, and expressed regrets from supervisors who once gladly accepted her findings, but only insofar as they remained hidden. In the muted glow of the lamp, she made a silent vow. She would not offer comfort or pity in that courtroom. She would demand accountability, even if it meant confronting the very man whose rulings had derailed her career. As the first light of dawn peeked through the window blinds, she packed the files into her navy coat, tucking her badge inside. This was more than a legal battle. It was the culmination of every injustice she had endured and every promise she had made in the dark. With a final look at her scarred wrist, she stepped into the morning chill, resolved to face down the judge who once laughed at her, and to transform her past wounds into the power that would bring real justice. When the court reconvened, the heavy oak doors closed behind the bailiff, with a final thud that echoed through the hushed chamber. Trevor Benson, the prosecution's key witness, shuffled forward with uncertainty written in every line of his posture. His sneakers squeaked slightly on the polished floor, a tiny sound amplified by the tense silence. He cleared his throat, voice wavering as he confessed. Was just repeating what the detective told me. I'm not sure what I saw myself. A collective murmur rippled through the spectators, like a wave crashing against the facade of the prosecution's case. Judge Voss pinched the bridge of his nose, searching for his next command, but his usually unshakable poise faltered. The gavel rested unused in his hand. Simone rose with deliberate calm, every inch the professional she once was in the FBI. Her voice sliced the tension cleanly. Mr. Benson, did you personally witness the defendant commit any crime, or are you merely echoing another officer's suggestion? Trevor's gaze flickered upward, uncertainty giving way to a flicker of honesty. He swallowed hard, then replied, Thought it was him, but now I'm not even sure. His admission hung in the air like a scalpel's cut, severing the carefully woven threads of innuendo. The courtroom exhaled as one. Defense attorneys leaned forward. Jurors exchanged glances, and even the court reporter paused mid-keystroke. The only sound was the soft click of the interpreter's headset, an unintentional metronome to the unfolding drama. Judge Voss finally spoke, voice brittle with irritation. "This is unacceptable. Witnesses must present first-hand testimony, not rumor." He rapped the gavel with more force than necessary, trying to restore order. But the momentum had shifted irreversibly. A ripple of applause, timid at first, then growing slightly, burst from the defense table. Not a boisterous ovation, but a steady acknowledgement. The power had moved from the bench and prosecution to the side of truth. Andre stood, chest swelling with relief and pride, as Simone offered him a small, knowing smile. The corners of her eyes softened for the first time that morning. In that smile lay the unspoken promise that she had broken the prosecutor's iron grip on the narrative. Across the aisle, the prosecutor's composure cracked. His hands trembled as he rearranged his files. Judge Voss's face reddened, his authority undermined by the simple yet damning confession of a wavering witness. Simone sank back into her seat, shoulders still perfectly squared. She did not need to gloat. Her calm dignity spoke volumes. The courtroom had witnessed the collapse of a case built on shadows and whispers. In that instant, justice no longer belonged to the gavel wielder or the state's theatrics. It belonged to the unvarnished truth revealed by a single, uncertain voice, and to the resolute determination of the woman who dared to demand it. Just as Judge Voss banged his gavel and threatened to adjourn in frustration, the courtroom doors flew wide open. 3 FBI agents' crisp black suits, steel badges gleaming, marched in, their presence shifting the charged air into electric stillness. The lead agent stepped forward, clearing his throat before reading from a sealed federal warrant. "Judge Walter Voss, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice, abuse of judicial power, and intimidation of a witness." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Voss's gavel clattered to the bench, abandoned as confusion and disbelief flickered across his face. His once commanding posture crumpled as cuffs clicked open and snapped firmly around his wrists. The cold metal at his skin was a stark testament. No one, not even a judge, is above the law. Silence poured into every corner of the room. Spectators froze in mid-breath, attorneys swallowed down objections, and even the bailiffs stepped back, uncertain whom they now served. The only sound was the soft rustle of Voss's robe and the deliberate footsteps of the agents escorting him away from the bench he'd wielded like a scepter. In that profound hush, Simone Jenkins and her brother Andre rose and met in the center aisle. They clasped hands, their grip conveying more than words ever could: relief, vindication, and the quiet acknowledgement of a hard-won victory. No applause broke the stillness, none was needed. Their eyes said it all. They had ended an unjust game, and justice itself had been reborn. As Voss disappeared through the side door, his robe brushing marble, Simone drew a breath that tasted like fresh dawn. Andre squeezed her hand and offered a soft nod of gratitude. She returned it with a gentle smile, unwavering even in the face of such upheaval. Together, they watched the agents depart, their silhouettes receding like the last shadows of a corrupted system. The courtroom's silent spectators slowly exhaled, heads tilted in wonder at the profound reversal they'd witnessed. Papers lay scattered on the benches, forgotten reminders of all the empty proceedings that had come before. Now those pages would bear new notes: the warrant, the charges, the final record that even a judge had fallen to accountability. In the aftermath, Simone and Andre stood side by side at the center of a changed world. Their triumph was not born of spectacle, but of unwavering courage and the strategic power of silence. They had confronted a man who once wielded authority like a weapon and prevailed. Justice had arrived not with fanfare, but with quiet inevitability. A single warrant, 3 agents, and the indomitable resolve of a sister determined to protect her brother. In that moment, the courtroom was transformed from a theater of pretense to a crucible of true justice, proof that even the coldest silence can become the loudest demand for what is right. This story teaches us that justice does not arrive through loud accusations alone, but often begins with a resolute silence and a single brave act. Rather than shrinking from prejudice, the heroine chose to stand firm amid scornful stares, compelling the system to heed reason. The key message is, if you witness wrongdoing, refuse to join the collective silence. Transform silence into a declaration, and courage into a tool for change. If you were the one facing the courtroom, what would you do next? Perhaps you'd leverage every media outlet, rally your community, or escalate your case to higher authorities to ensure the truth cannot be buried. Above all, you wouldn't rest until every vague accusation was clarified and the abuse of power held to account. Will racial discrimination truly end by 2050? The answer depends on our actions today. If every person dares to speak out and steadfastly demands equality, a fairer future ceases to be a distant dream. But if we remain indifferent, injustice will persist. Only when each of us recognizes both the right and the duty to uphold one another's dignity can we expect real change, whether by 2050 or beyond.